This week on Christian World News, President Trump moves to protect religious liberty here in America. While Christians are celebrating, some say it doesn't go far enough.
Plus, you're looking at a little miracle. When doctors found a tumor in this little boy's mouth, his parents began crying out to God. See how he answered those prayers in an amazing way.
And in the heart of the Middle East, a new church is rising up with the support of the Muslim royal family that governs the nation.
여러분 안녕하십니까? 크리스천 월드뉴스입니다. 도널드 트럼프 미 대통령이 종교 자유에 관한 행정명령에 서명했습니다. 많은 기독교인들이 긍정적인 반응을 보였지만 일부는 아직 만족하기에는 이르다는 평가를 내렸습니다. 오늘의 첫 번째 소식입니다.
America's freedoms come from God. That was part of President Trump's message to faith leaders gathered in the Rose Garden of the White House for a first-of-its-kind kickoff to the National Day of Prayer.
Our president is a believer. He loves his family and he loves his country with an unshakable faith in God and the American people.
The president marked the occasion by signing an executive order to protect religious liberty.
We will not allow people of faith to be targeted, bullied, or silenced anymore.
The order does three things. It states it's the policy of the executive branch to vigorously enforce federal laws' robust protections for religious freedom. It essentially orders the IRS to stop enforcing the Johnson Amendment, which forbids churches and other nonprofits from supporting and endorsing candidates. And it protects the conscience of employers who don't want to provide contraception and abortion-inducing drugs on their insurance plans that Obamacare mandated. Employers like the Little Sisters of the Poor who sued the Obama administration.
We are giving our churches their voices back.
Many evangelical leaders who pushed Trump to sign an executive order call the president's actions an important first step. However, the order is light on details, falls short of what many had hoped for, and some leaders admit they're disappointed.
The order leaves out workplace protections for Americans who wish to follow their conscience at work, like a baker who has a religious objection to making a cake for a gay wedding. It also fails to mention discrimination against people of faith in the military. I encourage the administration to immediately take concrete steps to ensure that people of faith remain free to live out their faith, writes Oklahoma Senator James Lankford. And the Alliance Defending Freedom writes, we encourage the president to see his campaign promise through to completion. But other leaders say the order combats the hostility Christians have been facing.
Quite frankly, I'm not sure there's enough paper in Washington, D.C. To contain all of the attacks that were launched on religious freedom under the Obama administration.
Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, the White House.
이와 관련해 CBN 정치부 수석 기자와 좀 더 자세한 이야기 나눠보겠습니다.
David, some religious leaders are saying this is a good first step, but more needs to be done. So from their perspective, what was lacking in this order?
Well, there were a couple of things. First of all, there was an expectation that there would be some language in there about military chaplains being protected as it relates to faith speech. That wasn't in there. And once again, when I say that wasn't in there, we're talking about specific language that wasn't in there. We can talk more about maybe it could be eventually down the road. There's that angle to it as well. But then, of course, it seems like the White House has basically punted the whole LGBT controversial portion of this, and that's the big part of it. In other words, there was no specific language at all that said, folks, people of faith will not be discriminated against, whether it be in the workplace or in other places around this country, as we've seen so time and time again around this around the country.
And David, speak to that very point. Was there a backlash? Were they fearing a backlash from the LGBT community?
Well, I don't think it takes a rocket scientist, George, to figure out, look, at some point, how much water can be in the boat before it sinks. And look, I mean, the reality is that there have been plenty of court issues with this White House as it relates to some of these executive orders. And we know about the what they call the travel ban and all of that. So, yeah, I mean, I think there was a sense that they didn't want to take that on, at least for now. But there are certain things in this executive order, which we can talk more thoroughly about, that do give evangelicals hope for the future, because the Attorney General and HHS, the head of the HHS, Tom Price, could indeed issue many new rules and guidelines that would help people of faith.
David, what can the president do more, and will he do it?
Well, we'll see. I mean, I think Jennifer made a really good point that this is a first step, and that's what many evangelical leaders are saying, because I just put up a blog on the Brody File, by the way, a little narcissistic plug. What else is new for me, I guess, George? But look, this was the first step, but the second step is what's coming from the Attorney General's office, from HHS. In other words, there's a lot of new guidelines, and if you notice some of the language, it says the Attorney General's office will issue guidance as it relates to some of these policies, or at least procedures. And so we'll wait and see what exactly that is. But there is a sense within the evangelical community that some of that heavy-hitting language that was missing in the executive order will actually come up in many of these guidelines.
David, there was one issue during the campaign that the president brought up quite often. It's the so-called Johnson Amendment. It was not part of this executive order. Why?
Well, right. Well, a couple of things. First of all, the Johnson Amendment is law. And if it's a law, let me check. That's right. Back to civics class, you got to repeal it. And you got to repeal it through Congress. It can't be repealed through an executive order. Now, what the president did do is basically boldly say that he's going to direct the IRS to, in essence, stay away from pastors and the pulpit, and say, hey, look, if they want to have some political speech inside their churches, and they won't even want to endorse candidates, knock yourself out. You can do it. And he's basically telling the IRS to stay away. So, you know, it's somewhat symbolic victory, but it's not a repeal of the Johnson Amendment. I think that's a very important point to point out.
Thank you for joining us on the broadcast. Have a great weekend, sir.
Always a pleasure, George. Thanks.
전 세계적으로 박해를 받고 심지어 살해를 당하는 기독교인들이 많이 있는데요. 프랭클린 그레엄 목사가 이들을 위해 나섰습니다. 박해받는 기독교인들을 위한 세계 정상회담을 개최한 겁니다.
It's happening in Washington, D.C., May 10th through 13th. It will bring together more than 600 people from 130 countries. The goal is to raise global awareness and show solidarity with persecuted Christians.
중국에서는 영유아 유기 문제가 심각합니다. 장애가 있는 아이의 양육을 포기하는 부모들이 늘고 있는 건데요. 하지만 이 중국인 부부는 한 생명을 결코 포기하지 않았습니다. 그리고 하나님의 도우심을 구했습니다. 중국으로 가보시죠.
For 7 years, Fu Chunzhi and his wife Xiaoli tried to conceive a child. Finally, in 2011, they decided to adopt an abandoned baby. The Christian couple was thrilled when they found the perfect baby at a local orphanage.
As soon as we got the phone call, we were so happy. My wife and I couldn't wait to see this baby. We've been waiting for this day forever.
In the midst of their happiness, they received disappointing news. The baby that they thought had been perfectly and wonderfully made was born with a small tumor in his mouth, and was not able to eat and drink.
We didn't know what to do. We wanted to keep the baby. Meanwhile, the cost for the surgery was so expensive. We were heartbroken. We lost hope and direction.
These church members went through a tough time. They didn't ask for anything except for prayers and guidance. So I invited all Christians to pray for a miracle.
Half a world away, Americans Audrey and Rob Post heard of the Chinese family's challenge. A church member shared the story and asked them to pray. The couple remained faithful, believing God would answer their prayers.
My husband and I always know the Lord can do miracles. Jesus answered prayers many times in our life, and we believe that nothing is too difficult for the Lord.
Other Christians also prayed for the Chinese couple and their baby. As time went by, although nothing changed, they still believed that God could work a miracle.
God's favor will show up when we are down to nothing. Just because they didn't see a way, it certainly didn't mean God was not working behind the scenes. I told the couple to remain faithful and patient.
Amazingly, one day, Zhi and Xiaoli saw the baby just spit something out of his mouth. They gave it a closer look and discovered that it was the tumor that had been lodged in his mouth. The couple was brought in tears.
It's a miracle. Only Jesus could do such an unthinkable miracle. When all Christians come and pray together, we can move mountains.
Not only did God give an abandoned child a new home, but he also performed a life-changing miracle for the entire Chinese family. Mengfei Li, CBN News.
성경은 50억 권이 인쇄된 전 세계 베스트셀러인데요. 하지만 디지털 시대를 사는 현대인들은 성경보다는 SNS를 보는데 더 많은 시간을 보냅니다. 이에 성경 전시회를 열어 성경에 대한 관심과 경외심을 불러일으킨 이들이 있습니다. 홍콩에서 전해온 소식입니다.
Hong Kong St. Andrew's Church received a 200-year-old gift from Christians Ken and Barbara Larson, a rare Torah scroll. This token was given in appreciation for allowing their main sanctuary to be a venue of the inspired exhibit. The touring exhibit is a display of ancient artifacts, manuscripts, and truths about the Bible's history and its preservation. The Torah is the first 5 books of the Bible.
Moses is credited with the first Torah written. From that point until now, the scribes in Jewish life would copy the Torah and make a new one. It was meticulous. They had to make sure there were no mistakes, no errors. The Torah is foundational for our theology, for our understanding of who God is, and for the plan of redemption that He has placed for all of us.
One of the key features in the exhibit is this 500-year-old Torah scroll.
It was buried by a rabbi during the time of Hitler when Torahs were being burned. Now this sums up everything about this exhibit, that God's word is indestructible, and being able to see it today and touch it is a miracle that empowers the Christian faith.
Former agnostic Josh McDowell tried to disprove the Bible, but he became a Christian after he discovered evidence proving its authenticity. Today, McDowell is a foremost apologist for the Christian faith, and he has written several best-selling books on biblical truths. He believes exhibits like Inspired are needed in today's technologically driven world.
With the internet and the way people live today, we've gotten away from our roots. We've gotten away from history, from tradition. And what exhibits like here at Inspired does, it gives people a sense of why they believe the Bible is true. When you see the precautions they took in copying it and everything, it builds up your faith. With millennials and younger, they're looking for something solid. They're looking for something they can put their hands on. Physical, historical evidence that the Bible is true.
Israel Consul General for Hong Kong, Sagi Carney, takes pride at how Jews contributed to the preservation and spread of the Old Testament.
You could see the evidence that there were Jews that were commuting along the Silk Road from the ancient world all the way to China, settling down in China, bringing the Bible into China.
The Inspired exhibit is set to travel to other nations in the fall, in hopes of instilling in people's hearts a deeper appreciation and understanding of the Bible and its core message of redemption. Lucille Talusan, CBN News, Hong Kong.
5월 26일부터 한 달은 무슬림들이 금식을 하며 기도하는 라마단 기간이죠. 이 기간에 기독교인들도 무슬림들이 하나님을 만날 수 있도록 함께 기도할 예정이라고 합니다.
It's called the 30 Days of Prayer for the Muslim World, and it coincides with the Muslim holiday. From May 26th to June 25th, millions of believers will pray that Muslims will discover Jesus. Organizers say it's all about praying for, not against Muslims.
중동 중심부에는 최대 규모의 성공회 교회가 건축 중이라고 하네요. 이 소식 먼저 들으시고요. 이 교회의 앤디 톰슨 목사와 좀 더 자세한 이야기 나눠보겠습니다.
One of the largest Anglican churches is being built in the heart of the Middle East. Soon, All Saints Anglican Church will open the doors to its new facility being built in Abu Dhabi, capital of the United Arab Emirates. The new church building will seat up to 4,200 worshippers. The Anglican Church's senior chaplain is Reverend Andy Thompson. Earlier, I spoke with him via Skype from Abu Dhabi. A church being built in an overwhelmingly Muslim nation. Reverend, how is this even possible?
All around us, neighboring countries are known for their hardline Islamic positions. For example, in Iran and in Saudi Arabia, the church has an incredibly difficult time there. But here in the United Arab Emirates, we have a tolerant climate where there are many churches here, and the All Saints Masafa Church is the latest one to be built.
My understanding is the government is in fact openly encouraging Christians to practice their faith, right?
The United Arab Emirates government gives land to the churches. They welcome us into government-initiated interfaith dialogue. They come along to special events. And it's just great to have such a close and working relationship with the Muslim authorities here at the highest level.
You talked a little bit about the difference in UAE, but what specifically is it? I mean, are they just more tolerant?
Well, I think the history of the United Arab Emirates, it has a long history of international trading, through maritime trading with the pearl industry. There's been a long history of trading with India and with Iran and with Iraq, where they've met people of very different religions and faiths over the centuries. So there's already been a long-established culture and tradition where tolerance has been necessary for successful trading. But in addition to that, most of the Emirati leadership have lived in the West, they've studied in the West, and there's also been a very positive history of Christian-Muslim interaction.
As you mentioned, there are more than 40 churches operating in this predominantly Muslim nation, right?
Christians constitute 9% of the entire population here. But that's just under 1 million Christians who live, work, and worship in the United Arab Emirates.
An interesting fact about this new facility is that the Dubai's royal family, who I assume are Muslim, donated the land for which you are building now your new facility.
And that came about through a high-level delegation visit from the Church of England. And we were very pleased to receive the gift of land for the Anglican community in Masafa.
Who are the people who come to your church, Reverend?
We have Koreans, we have Chinese, we have Pakistanis, we have hundreds of Indians, we have the Ethiopian Orthodox community, we have, in effect, people from all over the world representing different languages, different Christian traditions, Orthodox, Evangelical, Anglican, Baptist. We are the worldwide church, all put in the same space.
One group of people that you have not mentioned in that list, Reverend, are the natives of the UAE, who are called Emiratis. Are Emiratis allowed to attend your church?
We don't see Emirati Muslims attending worship on a regular basis, but they do come and support the Christian community at special times of the year and for special events.
Reverend Andy Thompson, thank you for joining us on the show this week.
버지니아에는 급식비를 못 내는 가정들을 돕는 한 교회가 있다고 합니다. 빈곤 가정들을 위해 수천 달러를 기부했다고 하는데요. 오늘의 마지막 소식입니다.
Times are tough.
And to help in difficult times, Mount Lebanon Baptist Church in Chesapeake, Virginia, wanted to give families in the local school district a boost.
It started with a tweet the other day. My wife on her Twitter line saw someone tweet out that it would be a good way of paying forward opportunities to bless other people by paying the delinquent lunch bill of young people in school.
Bishop Kim Brown is senior pastor at the church. He says they thought at first they would pay the delinquent lunch bills at just one school, but their generosity snowballed, and they donated more than $4,100 to the district. The money will help dozens of students at nearly 40 schools, every elementary and middle school in the Chesapeake Public School District.
This will literally zero out the balance of every elementary school student and every middle school student in the city of Chesapeake. I hope that there's a single mother out here, that this is one less thing for her to worry about, a single father, or just a family that's down on their luck that can say, hey man, God thought enough of me to be able to put it in somebody's heart to take care of one of my obligations.
Brown told CBN News it's an opportunity to model the love of Christ.
I think the Lord has always put on the heart of the saints here at this church to be community-driven, benevolent, and to display the love of Christ outside the walls of the church.
And he says the blessings continue to unfold, telling CBN News that one church member paid the lunch bills for some students at a school in another city, and he saw on Twitter that a man in another part of Virginia did the same.
You're blessed to be a blessing, so the greatest message is to never ever discount anyone else's situation. If God is prospering you, blessing you, make sure, the world calls it paying forward. I think the kingdom calls it the love of Christ.
Mark Martin, CBN News, Chesapeake, Virginia.
오늘 준비한 소식은 여기까지입니다. 저는 다음 주에 다시 찾아오겠습니다. 시청해주신 여러분 고맙습니다.